guest, Eric Mintel, a jazz maestro with a mesmerizing touch on the piano, has performed at the White House numerous times under different presidents, more than 10 concerts at the Kennedy Center. He leads a double life as a daring paranormal investigator, fearlessly venturing into haunted realms to uncover the mysteries that lie beyond. Well, welcome, Eric.
Adam, thank you so much. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, you have a longer bio than what I wrote, and I had to shorten it down in order
No,
to
I know.
fit it
I
in.
know. It's just there's been so much going on, but no, thank you so much. Great to be here, man.
Yeah. Now, how does a person like yourself, who's interested in or has a deep background in music, get into the paranormal realm of things or area?
Well, it's funny because we live here. Well, I live here in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. So we're not, this area is maybe about 60 miles northeast of Philadelphia, but we've got so much rich history here. A lot of ghost stories, UFOs, Bigfoot, you name it. There's all kinds of weird stuff going on here. So I've grown up with that. I've grown up with these ideas of ghosts, and we've got a lot of ties to the Underground Railroad. Um, so I've always had that in the background. That's always been in the periphery of my life. And then, but 31 years now as a jazz musician, with my jazz quartet, Eric Mintel Quartet, we, as you said, we've been playing, we have wonderful opportunities, but the paranormal was always in the background, it was always there. And like I said, just being in this area, stories that I've heard from my father growing up, and other people that I've heard so many great stories from, and just things that you can't explain. Um, and I had always been a filmmaker, so I was always doing video and always editing, and even with like VHS tape back in the 80s, and just all kinds of weird stuff. So fast forward to 2016, I was watching a lot of paranormal shows on TV, and I said, man, I could do that. I could do something like that, and like, because I was a filmmaker. And so we started doing, it was originally called Bucks County Paranormal Investigations, but I quickly changed it to Eric Mintel Investigates because we were starting to travel to and investigate all of these incredible cases. So that's what we've been doing, man. And I'll tell you, we've covered it. We're covering it all. I mean, it's only getting started. We've got ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs, dogman sightings, all of which we've had encounters with. And my show is, I like to say it's very family friendly. And but just some of the stuff that we've encountered, we still can't explain. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, for myself, for example, I know once you go down the rabbit hole of information, it's a never-ending path to discovering or opening up or shining a light on things that many people have either hidden or just denied for their own sanity.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, yeah, totally. I think, and you said that's a good thing to say too, because I think we're in an environment right now where people are coming forward telling their stories, and that stigmata is not there anymore. Whereas maybe 10, 15 years ago, would we even be talking about this stuff as freely as we are now? And because look, the government's saying, hey, folks, the UFOs you're seeing are real. We just don't know what they are.
yeah.
So I think we're in a good environment that way. At least people are coming forward. We're hearing more and more stories all the time when it comes to the UFO situation that there's something going on here way bigger than us.
Yeah, I mean, I interviewed different people from obviously from that field itself, of people who've investigated, people who've had encounters, people who are, considered hybrid beings, and I'm sure obviously you've done that work yourself. Uh, be it that you've started this or you've done this work since 2016, you said.
Yes.
What was the most profound or the first encounter that brought you to this eye-opening experience or this feeling?
Well, I'll tell you what, the when we one of our fans and friends, her name is Ellen Collins, and she had said to us, "Look, guys, you should do a video or a documentary on the Beast of Bray Road in Elkhorn, Wisconsin." Now, the Beast of Bray Road is supposed to be an upright canine dogman type creature, a werewolf, if you will, that I've heard about this thing over the years, but I never really put too much into it. So Ellen said we should do that. And I said, well, Ellen, I would love to do that, but we're here in Philadelphia. You're out in Wisconsin. How are we going to do this? Anyway, long story short, she paid the whole freight for us to do this, flew us out there, did this documentary. So I made her the executive producer on this thing. And so we go out there. The thing that changed my whole perspective, and I know I'm going to shorten this story a lot here, but We went out to Elkhorn on October 2nd through the 4th of 2021, and we were investigating on this farm of a guy by the name of Lee Hampel. Now, Lee, this is so weird how all these connections happen, man. So we decided to do the video. Then I see this is 2020. Then I see Lee on a paranormal program in December of 2020. He was on a show called Paranormal Declassified, and they were doing a thing on the Beast of Bray Road, but it was like winter time there, so they didn't really get a lot of evidence. But I looked at Lee and I said, man, he looks really approachable. Let me give him a call. I called him that night and we were on the phone for like 2 hours. And he's telling me all about his research evidence. And before I left, I said, hey, listen, Lee, we'd love to come out there and do an investigation on your property. Would that be okay? And he's like, absolutely, no problem. So we had that part in place. And then fast forward to October of 2021 is when we finally got out there. And we met Lee, phenomenal guy. Him and his brother Fred are awesome. But Lee has a 35-acre hayfield, and he's been getting so much evidence, hair samples, photos of this thing. It looks like it's a big black mass, but you could say that it looks like a Bigfoot, right? On the trail cam. But he's getting eye shine, weird UFO lights going through the woods that are across the field. And being a 35-acre hayfield, it's a big area. That's a huge area there. So we're in his barn the night of October 3rd, looking at all of his evidence, and it's getting dark out, and it's getting to be about 7 o'clock, and it's October, so it gets darker early. So we're out there, and I said, Lee, could we do an investigation in the field back there? And he's like, absolutely, just be careful. Because he's been getting all kinds of weird, like Lee had no interest in the paranormal whatsoever. He was a math teacher for 35 years in the Wakanda, Illinois. So had no interest in the paranormal. He bought this farm from his mother's estate. And it's when his neighbors said, oh, by the way, Lee, the creature's on your property, by the way. Did you know that? He goes, what? So, so he didn't even put 2 cents into it until that was 2011. 2014, he had his first encounter with red eye glow, red eye shine, looking back at him from this barn area from the field. This thing jumped 15 feet and disappeared. And they went back the next day. They found a seven-toed five-pad track. I'm sorry, seven-pad five-toed track, which is crazy because nothing has that. They also found like square tracks over in this area where this creature was seen. So we also found those tracks too when we did a follow-up. But the night of the October 3rd encounter was unbelievable. We're in the field, and what changed my whole perspective of this whole thing was I seriously went out there thinking it was going to be BS. I didn't think we were going to see anything. And Adam, I'll tell you what, man, we didn't have any protection. We had a flashlight and a radio. That was it. And what happened next? Like we get out there, no sooner are we out on the property and we're out in this area called this, he calls the bait area, where Lee has put like a roadkill deer in this area. So we're out in this area, and all of a sudden we get off the four-wheelers because it's a little haul to get out there. It's about half a mile or so. Dominic gets off the four-wheelers and goes, what the hell is that? And right over the field going over is a solid orb of light, about 1,000 feet up. A UFO. You could see other lights, you could see other planes around it, right?
Right.
It's going over slow, silent, no sound. And as we're looking at this thing, we're trying to figure out what the hell it is because there's planes there, there's a plane there, there's a plane there. And by the way, we caught all of this stuff on video. Your listeners could check out my video, The Beast of Bray Road, Alive and Well. But we're looking at this thing, Ellen's looking at it, and the people who were on the site that night, it was me, Dominic Sattel, my spirit medium team member here in my crew, Ellen and her son Scott, who's working camera. So we're looking at this thing, and all of a sudden it does a 45-degree angle and blinks out. It disappears. So that was the first thing. We had like a trifecta of paranormal activity that night. The second thing we heard were these howls, this howl very far in the distance. And Dominic and I are looking at each other like, what the hell's that? And then another howl came closer to us, and it wasn't a coyote. These were not coyote howls at all. Third howl comes closer. This thing made a sound, made a howl to me, and I try to compare it to a man screaming in this field. It was this low, guttural scream, growl, yell combination that didn't pitch. It was monotone and just kept going. And I'll send you that video. I'll send you that video clip to you could hear this. It was just mind blowing. So right there, it was like the fear factor was there, but it was like, what are we hearing? What is this? So, and we were, it changed my whole thing right there. But what really got me was when Dominic said, shine the light over to where we saw where we heard the howl. So he shines the light over there, and sure enough, and it was in the corn, 6 to 7 feet up in the corn area, we see eyes, yellow eyes going like this, like looking, like stalking us, right? That was it. We're out of there. And this was in within a half hour, Adam. I mean, this is just like we're there. Lee couldn't believe we were back so soon, you know? And so we get back to the barn, and then there's just so much more that happened. It was just so weird. Like the trail cams that night, all of the GoPros didn't work. We had all these electronic disturbances. The camera that we were using was fine, but right after we heard that howl, that third howl, suddenly a really weird mist started coming up from the field, and it was messing with our electronics. And Lee has also been getting this weird mist on trail cam where it's been obscuring. He has an incredible picture of this mist coming over the deer in the daylight. A black mist comes over the deer, and then the next picture, the deer is gone, and so's this mist. So is this thing like making itself known like in an alternate reality, or it's so bizarre, man, what's going on out there. So it changed my whole that I would say would be the one that really got me, that was the eyebrow raising.
Yeah, it's all these the encounters that most people have are I guess a challenge or a way of opening us up
Yeah.
to a different way of thinking, whether it
Yeah.
be a near-death experience or an encounter. And in your perspective, is there a specific either geographical region that lends to this? Is it are there ley lines? Are there specific types of maybe you could
That's a good question, because that's what I thought. There's areas in the world that have like those ley lines and portals, and where you get all kinds of weird electromagnetic energy. I think Lee's property is one of those areas, because what happened to us earlier in the day, it kind of confirmed it, because Scott was working, he builds very high-end drones for a really great company. And they're like racing drones, but he has to wear virtual reality glasses in order to see where he's going. So as we were in the field earlier that day doing some reconnaissance in that area, trying to figure out where this creature's been seen, where we were going to set up for the night and everything, we're walking in the field over to that bait area, and we completely disappeared digitally off of Scott's screen. So, I mean, we were there. We were still there. He lifted up the glasses. He's like, where are they? And then he lifted them up, and we were still there. But he put them back down, and we were not there. So there was something blocking the whatever, the radio waves or whatever. But that was the other thing that really got me thinking, that could this thing be coming in and out of these portals? It's just really, really fascinating.
Yeah, another concept that I notice or I know for myself is that when we do evolve and change, we face certain resistance from certain people.
Oh,
Have,
yeah.
have you faced that in your life or in terms of going up this path?
Uh, Not really. I mean, everybody that I've talked to and watches our videos are, because we're truth-based investigators. We're all about truth. And what we're doing is all, I mean, we don't we have no high tech anything. We have a camera. Dominic is our spirit medium, and we use maybe a magnetometer and flashlights, radios. That's it. We don't use those spirit boxes or anything like that, or REM pods or anything, because they always give you a false reading anyway. Um, but no, people. sometimes people will say, oh, well, that was a coyote, or that was this, or that was that. But more often than not, and we've talked to a lot of hunters that they can't explain what that sound is. And so more often than not, we get people on board that are really intrigued by our investigations and in turn have followed us on a lot of our investigations. And thankfully, my jazz audience has followed me into into the paranormal because jazz is paranormal anyway, man.
You're on it, your frequency is yeah, depending upon the frequency, right, that we're giving off. Um,
Exactly.
I'm in the Jersey area, not far from New Hope or that Bucks
Oh, yeah,
County.
where are you?
I'm in Marlboro,
Oh
Manal.
yeah, 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 yeah. You're right down the street from me.
Yeah, and I often go to that area, and I often pass the Pine Barrens, as you mentioned in terms of one of your stories. And
Oh
as I drive through there, I always say to myself, it's so mystical, or I've never ventured off to travel on a kayaking or whatever they have like tours, or but maybe you could share a little bit about Bigfoot in the Pine Barrens.
Oh, yeah, definitely, man. Well, so a week after we got back from the Elkhorn investigation, good friends of mine out in Medford, New Jersey, Eric Spinner, and Art Mack. Eric owns a health food store out there called Health Haven 2, and it's out in Medford. And but he's also a Bigfoot researcher. He even has like a little Bigfoot museum, little display of tracks and hair samples and things like that. But Eric and I had been talking maybe a few months prior to this about these juvenile Bigfoot sightings that people were seeing in the Pine Barrens, where these creatures were coming out of the woods, going into neighborhoods, taking the garbage out of the garbage cans, bringing them back into the woods. And people are seeing these things on two legs, just walking, and they're not bears and they're not people. They're hairy things, creatures. So we decided to look into that, and go down there and check it out. So this is a week after we got back from Elkhorn, man. 2021 was just like the most paranormal year ever, man. It was crazy. So, but we get down to this area that Eric wanted to investigate, where he's had a lot of activity. It's called the Bowl. And really, what it sounds like is that it's very high on the sides and it goes down into the middle. And it's about 5 miles. We went about 5 miles into the Pine Barrens on those fire roads, that they have to use and then we parked the truck and then we went about 600 yards into where the bowl was, where that area is, and we set up base camp. And we're sitting there just looking around. I mean, it is dead quiet, no wind, no sound. I mean, and the Pine Barrens and people that, your listeners would understand, it's thousands and thousands of acres of just dense forest. Like you can't even move sometimes in some of these areas. So we're sitting there. Eric's talking about, their protocols, how they go about their research, and all of this. And Dominic is sitting there talking to Art about the Bigfoot UFO connection, and is there any kind of relevance to that? And Art was saying, I don't really believe in that type of thing, but I'm open to a lot of different possibilities. But anyway, so while he's talking, all of a sudden we hear a whoop coming from the woods in the back. And I'm like, what? And I always say this too. Like whenever I saw those Bigfoot shows on TV and those guys are whooping and hollering for Bigfoot, I always had to laugh, man, because I'm like, I always had to say, is that what they sound like? So, but I'll be damned if that's not what we heard. So, boom, we hear this big whoop in the back. And thankfully, Eric had these really high-powered microphones going. You could hear it on our video. We had little lavalier microphones that it actually picked it up, but Eric had another high-powered audio, so it picked it up. But what really got us was, and again, it changed my whole perspective of what's a Bigfoot too, where Eric's wife Heather was on the investigation with us, and she goes to answer it, or she does a whoop, and you could hear this thing answering her back, not once, but like 5 times. But I put it twice on our video. She's going whoop, and it's going whoop, and you could hear it in the background. And there's no one there, man. I mean, it's like there's absolutely no one there. So whatever it was mimicking what she was doing. So we got evidence on video. I could not believe it, man. It was incredible.
Yeah, it's so interesting things. I mean, the stories and the experiences that you have. Um, you also spoke about a lady in white in Bucks County.
Oh yeah. I have to also say before I go into that, we did a follow-up of Bigfoot in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. So we did a follow-up in September of last year. So this is just maybe just about a year ago. And we went to the same area. Eric wanted to go to a different area, but I wanted to go back to that same area. Now they had wildfires there. Remember those wildfires were going on? So that if we were sitting in that area where the bull was, we would have been on fire. That was all on fire right there. But anyway, when we got down there for this follow-up, you could see the trees were charred, but it was starting to come back again. And but Eric thought, this is going to be a dead area down here. We're not going to get any activity because whatever, the fires probably drove them out. That was far from the case, man. So we're sitting there again at base camp, and now Art is going through some cancer treatments and he's got to take some medications. But to look at him, you wouldn't think anything's wrong with him, right? But he's sitting at base camp. We're all sitting together, and Art goes, guys, I don't know if it's my medications that I'm taking or what, but my heart is really racing right now. And with that, boom, we hear a cracked branch behind us, right? Flip the camera around, and I saw a branch just going like this, just flopping around, and everybody saw it. And then for the 2 seconds, I saw these yellow eyes about 7 feet up, and then they disappeared. And then you could hear something going back into the swamp area. Now, a lot of people think it's the Jersey Devil, right? It's that maybe we captured the Jersey Devil. And not to piss any Jersey people off, but I always think that that Jersey Devil was a misidentification of Bigfoot. Because you always get misidentifications where, and it's not consistent. Like the Jersey Devil is supposed to be as big as a winged horse, or people have seen it as small as a turkey or a medium-sized dog. So there's a lot of inconsistent reports there, but I always thought that it was Bigfoot. And Adam, here's another thing for you just to think about, for your listeners to think about here too. I couldn't believe this when Dominic was with us on this investigation. And Dominic is a spirit medium, and this is hunting cryptids and everything is out of his wheelhouse. So why we brought Dominic down this time around was to figure out the paranormal aspects of could Bigfoot be a ghost? Is that what we're seeing here? What is that what people are experiencing? Because they never see it. They see a glimpse of it and then it's gone.
Right.
But what he figured out somehow, he devised, or not devised, but he made a connection with art and Sasquatch, that for some reason there's a connection there because of art's research, that Sasquatch, I know it's going to sound crazy, but Sasquatch is seeing through art's eyes.
Yeah.
And vice versa. I don't know if you've ever heard about this kind of thing. Remember like E.T. and Elliot? Remember they had that symbiotic relationship? So it's that similar kind of thing. But why I think that's so important to mention is because of what Art felt at the site where his heart was racing. And was this thing watching us? And it was getting nervous, and it was in turn, Art's heart was racing at the same time. So there's a really weird connection there. And that's something we have to look into as well. But that night was crazy, man. We were getting all kinds of howls. We saw the eyes shine. Just very, very strange activity.
Yeah, yeah. I've been through different regions on the Northeast, and I've driven through, I think, Massachusetts or state New York, and you see there's certain villages up there that I see the signs. Maybe
Oh,
you
yeah.
forget.
Oh my God. Well, Adam, you know what the even scarier part of that night was? When four guys in this pickup truck just come out of nowhere, and they shine the lights down into where we are. They're like, "Hey, what are you doing down there?"
Yeah,
And Eric goes up, and here, I guess these guys in this truck were being like harassed by these guys on ATVs and things like that. And they thought it was us, but it wasn't us. But we had seen them earlier. So that was a little hairy because you're in the Pine Barrens, man. There's nothing around.
yeah. What's the connection exactly with UFOs and in terms of Bigfoot itself? Is it a relay system for information through that, or what?
I don't, that's where the ongoing research is happening here, because it's like you always see these correlations, not always, but sometimes when you have a Bigfoot sighting, people see UFO to go along with it. And we had this kind of idea, and Art actually came up with this idea. You know how people sometimes are being abducted, right, from the UFO abductions. And I know several people who are longtime UFO abductees and contactees. And to hear them tell their story, it's profound what's going on with them. But we were thinking, why couldn't Bigfoot be abducted and be operated on, or figuring out what, and when they drop him off or it off, there you go, there's the UFO connection. That's, you could look at it one way. I don't know if that's it, if that's the connection or not. But even with like just, I would say the Patterson Gimlin film, the 1967 footage of those guys in California, they just happened to be there at the right time at the right place. And I think even Bob Gimlin had said that they saw a UFO that day too. It's written somewhere about that. So, I don't know. I mean, there's another one in Erie, Pennsylvania, where there was a Bigfoot UFO. These kids saw this UFO come down in the trees. Right after that, a Bigfoot creature came out of the woods toward them. So I don't know. There's a lot more research that needs to be done on that.
I mentioned the lady in white, but let's touch upon something before that with the UFOs itself. I mean, I remember I myself had certain encounters on the Jersey Shore with
Oh,
the
wow.
ship hovering over and then taking off. And then that winter, a blue orb over Newark Airport flew right over my car and just hovered or like an orb. It looked like a Roman candle, but it was the winter time. So, and I've always had my connection with specific types of people who pass information on to me. I do healing work, and
Okay.
for that experience or having those experiences, and then I watching Project Blue Book, which was on the History Channel, which was very interesting. And seeing those beings specifically in the woods that Hynek investigated.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I'm a definite believer, and obviously I have a motivation of understanding of what lies beyond. Um, and as you travel on this particular path itself, where is your work leading to? Like, what are you looking for further?
Well, I'll tell you what, you just said it. It's like, in our research, I think there's people that are connected to these beings in the spirit world or the UFO world. There's people that are picked to experience these experiences, yourself included. You could be a conduit for these, and how you got into your work because of this profound these experiences that you've had. And that's what we find with people that they have, because you know how it is. You could be standing there and you could have a friend standing next to you. You're looking at the UFO, but they don't see it. There's something there where your antenna may be more attuned to that. Or the other things we were thinking, could it be in family lines? Could it be in, generational? And I'm sure you've found that too, where there's family members that have had UFO experiences their entire life, and it's still going on.
Yeah. It's interesting. I have friends who, when I post stuff on UFOs, they tell me leave me alone with that, or they don't want to hear from me. But what's interesting is that I had a dream the other night about a particular friend, and it was like almost like a premonition, where I said to him, I said, "Tell me about your childhood. What happened?" And he said, "I did see something, and I don't want to know about it." So I have to actually ask him and confront him on that because it was such a real conversation in my dream. And I think
Yep.
usually that happens a lot of times because there are specific people who've had experiences that are shooken by the experience and don't know how to express it or
Oh yeah,
verbalize it.
absolutely, absolutely.
I think,
Yeah, it's amazing, man. And look, a lot of, it's like anything traumatic, right? Anything traumatic, I don't think you want to have that conjured up. I mean, we've all gone through it, and it's like it's part of being human, it's the all of these experiences. But there's some things that I don't care who it is. It's whether it's rich, poor, whatever. Everybody's had some kind of a paranormal experience that they can't understand, and that they can't put their mind to. But I think, in our research with like the hauntings and ghosts and things like that, I don't find it malevolent. I don't find, and we're not, and I'm not one to exacerbate or, the fear factor, I'm not one to encourage that. What I'm all about is, look, if there's something there haunting, they liked being there. They liked being in those places. That's why you get a lot of like inns and restaurants and pubs and bars being haunted because I think those entities liked being there. Maybe they don't even know that they're still not there, yeah, or that they're still there. They don't know that they've passed on, you know. So very rarely do we ever get any kind of malevolent type of thing, except one place, this vampire museum that we're actually investigating in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, which we're doing a series. We've just done parts one and part two, and we're going to be premiering that. It's called Paranormal Pickers at the Vampa Museum in Doylestown. It's a vampire paranormal museum. He has over 700 vampire killing sets, in this place from like the 17 and 1800s, right? So Adam, I'm going, what the hell was going on back then, man? I mean, what was going on to have so many of these things out there? You know, I always say that there's a little bit of truth to the folklore, right? There's always a little bit of truth. So the only thing that we is like with Dominic, like he could go in, and I'm sure you could too. You go into an area and you could feel those spirits. You could feel that. I don't have that ability where we go in and feel those. So that's why we bring Dominic and our other psychic medium, Julie Krause, because they're kind of giving us a preview of what we're in store for. But one place at this museum, in this one room, I do get that feeling. It's this doll room, and it's a very dark, dark energy there. And it's one of these things that's like, I got to get out of here. It's like that really like crazy. And it's also an area in that room that Dominic got growled at. So there's some really demonic thing going on in there. And so we saged ourselves and got at once we did the investigation, we, had a cleansing and whatnot. But we caught it on video, whatever it is, we caught it on video. And then 2 weeks ago, someone was at the museum in that same room doing video, talking to this one doll that's in there, and it talked back to her. And, and she got it on video. It's the creepiest thing, man. So I don't know. Dominic won't go back. He won't go back in there.
So when clients ask for a person to come, is there when there's a confirmation of the things that they know about that you confirm, what happens from that point?
So basically, here's what we do. I get a lot of people that ask me, hey, my house is haunted. Could you come in and help us? And we don't do that. We're not doing that. We are, I like to say we're a paranormal tourism show, a TV show, showing where to go, what to do, where to experience all these things. And we're showcasing these venues. When we showcase the venues and we do these videos, what we're then doing is we're doing an event at that venue of the video to show people, what we've done. And it's amazing how many people come out. It's packed to the rafters because they've had these experiences. And people that have had experiences there want that confirmation. So people who want to get that confirmation, they'll come to our events. But if people's homes are haunted, I'll usually put them onto Julie, who will do a cleansing, or Dominic will do some readings there, or whatever, or some other people that could go in and do that. But I don't do that. But and I feel bad because it's like that we've had a lot of people that have had this dark energy in their lives, and whether it's a ghostly phenomena or it's a mental phenomena, I don't know. And that's not my area of expertise that way. And I would never want to put anybody in that position, or say that I'm doing that, which we're not. But anybody that I've turned on to has helped them, so it's always good that way.
Yeah. I've interviewed people who've witnessed crop circles and investigated crop circles, and as you're investigating Bigfoot prints, I mean, it's not the similarity, but the act of investigating a print itself.
Yeah.
What is that like to see the print? Is it a Bigfoot print?
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. You have to take a plaster cast of it, but yeah, you see this print, and you're trying to put two and two together. Could it be someone's print? Could it be a human? But then you're like, well, wait a minute. We're out in this area that's like there's no one really walking around out here, and it's barefoot. And so that's where Eric Spinner will take his cast. He'll get this castings, and and then that Bigfoot print in Bluff Creek, California. That wasn't a big print. That was maybe about maybe a size 12 or something like that. So it wasn't a big print, but at least it was there. And who's there? Who's walking around like that out there? And prior to those guys getting that film, a crew that was working with the timber out there, they were cutting trees down. They also saw prints maybe about a month or so prior to them getting this footage. So something was already there, and that's why they went up to investigate it. But yeah, and a lot of times too, when you're in the pine barrens, you've got a lot of leaf litter. There's a lot of pine needles, so that's going to inhibit your finding tracks and whatnot. But every so often, I'll get a person that will send me a video or a photo of tracks in your area that have seen that there's no way that anybody could be there, and it's a Bigfoot print.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're getting reports all the time out there of these things crossing the road, 8-foot shadow going across the road that these people are seeing. So, and is it able to cloak itself? That's the other thing. There was hair samples in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. They were translucent under the microscope because I'm wondering, could this thing be, cloaking itself somehow? Because you know how it is. It's like with a deer, right? A deer could be right there and you're looking right at it, but it blends in so well with its environment. And if it's not moving, you can't see anything.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, it moves and then it's there. But yeah, very, very fascinating stuff, man.
I, I'm very interested in the subject of orbs. I don't know if you encounter orbs in places itself with
Oh
things
yeah.
on the recording itself or in the presence of seeing it on walls or floating around. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Oh, orbs all the time. We just did an investigation up in Connecticut at the Old Lyme Inn, and Dominic, even on the way up there, it was just me and Dominic on this one. On the way up there, he is already seeing that there is a spirit of an older woman that doesn't like the way the place is run. Never even knew anything about the place, doesn't even know anything about it. And then I go and sit down and talk with the owner that day when we got there and did an interview while he was looking around the place and tuning in. And she tells me, yeah, there's a spirit of a woman that's been seen at the top of the staircase who doesn't like the way things are run around here. And I'm like, it's great. So we go to that part of the stairway that night. We're getting orbs like crazy, and because what happens there with orbs, I think the energy gets ramped up, by us talking about it, thinking about it. It's this thought process idea now that's going on where you're thinking about it. You think about something, and then there's a UFO. You think UFO, and you see it. Ghost, and you see it. Bigfoot, you'll see it. So it's like intention, right? It's like putting something out to the universe. So there's a lot of research being done on that now. But when we were at the top of the stairs, we're getting orbs like crazy. And it was right in that area Dominic was tuning into that was kind of pulling him into that area. And that happens a lot. We get a lot of orb activity. We were at a restaurant in Doylestown, and I captured a huge orb on video. And then with the UFO situation, a couple right up the street here, and they had no problem telling me their name or what, and they were on video and talked about it. Mitch and Rob and Sherman, great folks. But Mitch has had this UFO encounter in his like the last couple of years where he's seeing this really crazy orb that's going across the sky in his backyard. Well, his wife Robin had an orb, or maybe she wants to say it's a finger-sized point of light that came up to her and then shot away. And I'm thinking to myself, could this thing be scanning her?
Yeah, yeah,
Is this a consciousness that's coming to her, trying to communicate? Because it was only the size of a finger, right? And we know that light continues. Light is a continuous thing. This is just it contained to the size of a finger, and then it flies off. And but she didn't get it on video because she was just like stunned. She's sitting there looking at this thing. Mitch was inside. She's calling for Mitch. By the time he gets out, the thing was gone. But again, I'm thinking to myself, these people that are having these situations, they're probably connected to this somehow,
yes, yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And that's the $64,000 question, right? It's like, why? How is this possible?
Yeah, well, I think when we're on the right path,
Yeah.
we're opening up to a subject that resonates with our soul itself, and
Yep.
again, we are contacted in order to be told or supported. It's interesting. For example, I do shamanic drumming. I do that. I do a YouTube once a week. I do a drumming circle. And when I filmed this, and I was talking about a specific subject. There was an orb in the background, which I have recorded. It's
Oh my God.
floating on the wall and going across. And then the next week, I did the same thing and it went across, but a different direction. So having it slow mode it so that you can see it anyway, but to make it more vivid. And I have people who've had CE5 contact in Norway and other countries, and they'll contact me and say, I didn't originally see it. They'll say, did you see the orb behind you? And I said, no. They say, go to this particular time frame and look at it. And I said,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you're
So,
like, whoa.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I know that when you speak about orbs or you speak about connections itself, and even yourself, seeing the synchronicities that exist of what you think about will come into your energy field as a synchronicity.
Oh, absolutely. Today is 6 years already that I lost my mom. And about thank you. And so I was here at the piano. This is maybe a couple of months afterward. This is 2019. We lost her in 2018. This is like maybe January of 2019. And I'm playing the piano here. And my fiance Sherry says, "Oh, that was beautiful. Play that again. I want to videotape that." So as she's videotaping me playing this, we see a huge orb comes over top of me and like going over my body, and we're thinking, "There's my mom."
Absolutely.
I got to send you that. You will freak out when you see this. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this stuff is there, man. It's like, it's just like, and that's why I said earlier, I think we're in a really good position now to talk about this stuff and not think that people are crazy because it's like they're having these experiences.
Well, what's interesting is that when you have a sense of credibility, or you
Right.
develop a sense of credibility in
Right.
one aspect of your life, then it lends itself to the opportunity to then share and do the work you're doing as a musician and now transition both.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And oh yeah. And having I've got a really great reputation in the music world and and I try to bring that whole reputation. Look, man, I love people, and it's just like we all have to help each other out here, and everybody has instead of fighting each other, we've got to come together, man. So I think that's why I love this work too. And I love the history part of it too, because we're all, we're passing by, especially you guys in Jersey, passing by these incredible places every day that people have no clue it's in their own backyard, you know? And all this great, because history is going by the wayside in schools. So we're telling these stories and people are like, oh my God, I never knew that was there, so it's cool. But you mentioned the lady in white.
Yes.
Uh, and this is a true story, man. This has happened to me, and I'll just do a little condensed version of this. But I was in 1997 going to a gig. It was November of 97, and I was traveling to a gig in Bucks County, and I'm on this back road it's called Pine Lane in Bucks County. We had a steady gig at this place called the Wycombe Inn, and I'm traveling. It's getting dark. It's November, so it's dark, and it's a little slick out. So I'm going like a bat out of hell trying to get because I'm running late to this gig, and I'm going down this road. All of a sudden, a deer runs out in front of me, and I hit it, and I'm like, ah, I felt so terrible. And as I hit this thing, I slammed the brakes on. Both of us are sliding like 60 feet, to come to a stop. And I get out of the car. I'm looking at this poor deer, and I'm like, oh my God, just feel terrible. Now I'm a piano player, right? And in the woods behind me, I hear a woman's voice say, "How's your hands?" And I'm like, I turn around, and here, I kid you not, a woman in white comes out of the woods, stands in front of the car where right over the deer. And do you know when people stand in front of, like if a person was standing in front of your car with the headlights on, you know how they would be like kind of obscured looking?
Yes.
That's what she looked like, very, very blurry-ish, but I could tell it was a woman wearing white, these white flowing things. What got me was she reached down and took this 200-pound deer by the ear and dragged it off the road like it was nothing, like right out from the front of my car off the road. And then she says to me, "You better get in your car and get out of here." So I didn't say anything, man. I was just stunned. I didn't say a word. I got in the car and went to the gig, told the guys what happened. They were freaked out. And my hood was dented in because you could definitely see that I hit this thing. Um, so I went back, well, going back that night, I was very cautious about that. Didn't see anything. But I went back the next day and here's what I thought. I thought there was houses or something in the woods, and there was somebody in the woods. That's why the deer got spooked. Maybe there was somebody there. No houses, nothing but woods there. There was nothing around. And the deer was gone too. But so it was the weirdest thing, man. I mean, and so I think of her as my guardian angel. But Adam, there could be another connection here too, which my dad had a connection, or he had an encounter with this woman in white in the mid 70s. Now, it was the mid 70s. My dad was a little bit of a partier. He was actually later on, he was an alcoholic and he was, just didn't treat himself well. Let's just put it that way. But on this particular time frame, he said he was stone sober. He was sober that night, and not stoned, but sober. um, and so he's sitting. We lived in an area called Upper Black Eddy. So we had a little apartment. We had apartment was here, and there was somebody that lived above us. It was like a little duplex kind of thing, just one single house. So it's 2:30 in the morning, he says, and he always had a little habit of when he came home late, he would cook a steak on the grill. We had a little hibachi grill that he cook a steak on. So he's sitting there cooking the steak with the charcoal and everything sitting there. And he's just sitting there looking across the street. And we lived across from the Delaware River. So and he's washing across the Delaware. So the Delaware River's there. It's about a quarter of a mile is the river. You can see the water. And as he's looking at the water, he sees this white thing on top of the water. And as his eyes are adjusting, it's a woman. He's like, that looks like a woman out there. And it's got flowing hair, these flowing robes, all white. She turns to him, and when she turned from a quarter of a mile away, her face came right up to his, that fast, and then turned back and went back to the water. And as she's walking on the water, floating on top of the water, she was saying, "I'm going home. I'm going home." And he said you could hear this echoing through the valley. And no one else was up. Obviously, it was like 2:30 in the morning. But he swears that happened. And then she just disappeared. And I even said on his deathbed a couple of years ago, I said, "Dad, did this really happen?" He's like, "I swear that happened. That happened." And he had stopped drinking and stuff years or for a good 15 years. And unfortunately died of lung cancer because he was smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day. But he said he swears that happened. So my father, I think, he also had a little bit of psychic energy as well. He had been getting, like you said, premonition. He was getting a premonition back in the 70s, of course, after this happened, where he kept seeing this white stuff all over the road in front of our house. This is another house. We moved a lot when I was younger, but we lived in a place called Hollicong, Pennsylvania. It's right on 202, right outside of New Hope. And he keeps seeing this white stuff on the road, and it's like, yeah, I don't know what this is. Anyway, 3 o'clock in the morning, we get a knock on the door. Here it's a truck driver asking to use the phone. His milk truck just dumped over in front of the house. All the milk's white. The milk is all over the road. So, he's had that kind of like, that kind of thing. And he's had encounters with UFOs and obviously ghosts and things like that. So he was more connected to that than say my mom was. But he went to a psychic one time and said, you have a very blue aura around you, my dad. And the psychic said, but your son has an even greater aura. And I was like, I don't have that ability. Maybe it's with my music. Maybe I'm able to, I could sit down and play anything. I could just sit down. I'm completely self-taught. So I'll hear a song once now. I've gotten to the point where I could just hear it and play it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't even read music, man. So it's that kind of thing. But it's amazing. But then come to find out later, there is a lady in white that has been seen in Bucks County. So other people have seen her.
Interesting.
Oh, it's wild. So I always say again, at the end of the day, people are experiencing and seeing something.
Yeah, but then again, as you just mentioned, since you're at that frequency of resonating at that level of consciousness,
Yep.
thinking about is drawing that energy, just like anyone can see out of their periphery who has a certain gift for viewing the auras and the bodies, the energetic bodies. For me, it's interesting because I know you're a musician, and what I wanted to really understand was, has this work enhanced your music, uh,
Good
passion,
question.
your imagination, your
Oh yeah.
okay? So is it
Oh yeah. I mean, Adam, I'll do things at the piano that I never thought I'd be able to do, during a improv, when I'm improvising. And just things, even with the group now, these guys have not, we've been together for 20 years in my jazz quartet. I always say we've been together longer than most marriages. And we still like each other after all these years. But, when we play together, it's hard to describe, but if you see us play, there is like an electric that goes, there is an energy that goes around the whole group. And so much so that I'll play something. I'm a very rhythmic player on the piano, and my drummer will hit the same thing that we'll hit the same thing together. And we both look at each other like, because it's a listening factor too. All the senses are going at once when you're improvising. Sight, sound, touch, a glance will tell you that the next person's going to, take over that improv. So it's all about a nonverbal communication in that aspect of it with jazz. With rock, it's a whole different thing because you've pretty much got three chords, or you've just got everything laid out in front of you. But with jazz, you're following a formula, but the idea with jazz is you have the rules, but then you forget the rules and it becomes just one with that person. And that's what I love about the music, is because some things I'll be like, wow. And people are like, do you guys rehearse that stuff? And we're like, no, we never rehearse. We never rehearse. I mean, I'll bring a song to the group. I can't write music, but I'll bring a chart. I could write it down very elementary. But I'll leave that to my saxophone player Nelson to put it on the music down on paper. He's the scholar of the group. He performed right out of Eastern University with Maynard Ferguson. Went right on the road with Maynard. He was in Gloria Estefan's Miami Sound Machine. All these great guys. But once we put it, I have the idea, and then I give it to the guys, and then it becomes this organic process where everybody puts their own ingredients into it, and then it begins to grow into this song, and then it continues to keep growing, and it's amazing, man.
Yeah, I've listened to music over the years in terms of actually now going back and seeing certain groups that had written about specific groups, like I forgot the Sirius, I forgot the group. It's the Alan Parsons Project,
Oh yeah, yep.
ELO, Electric Light Orchestra,
Oh
and
yeah.
even the Carpenters. They actually wrote a song, and I had a vision of that actually. That they must have written something, because to me they look like galactic beings, the brother and the sister.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Why
yeah.
not? They wrote a song about going home to back to their. I don't know the name of the song, but it's interesting.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, you get a lot of people that are so super talented, man. It's like, where does it come from? You know, it's this gift that we're given. And I'm very lucky, and just and that's why you want to tell these stories, and the gift of music. All of my videos have like a little jazzy undertone to it too. So
Yeah, if anybody was interested in reaching out to you, where could they do that?
they could find me at ericmintelinvestigates.org, or our website or my jazz quartet is ericmintelquartet.com. And then on Facebook, Eric Mintel Investigates, also the quartet. And then my YouTube channel, if they want to see, we have got over 100 videos there, and more coming. That's our YouTube channel's Eric Mintel Investigates, and I've got a bunch of new videos coming out in October they've been done for a couple of months that we're releasing now for some premieres, and so they're going to be on YouTube very soon for people.
And you've also written a book. Maybe you could share with the audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, I just, believe it or not, I wrote a book after all these years, and it's basically Eric Mintel Investigates Casebook Investigations from 2016 to now, showcasing a lot of the investigations we've done that we still are wrapping our heads around, trying to figure it out, whether it's the Beast of Bray Road, or ghosts, or the Pine Barrens Bigfoot. So that's available on Amazon.com,
Yeah.
and folks could check that out. That'd be great. Thank you
The
so
audience with
much.
a message based upon the work you do. whether it be the music, the paranormal stuff itself in general?
Yeah, I would say just have an open mind. Keep an open mind. If somebody's coming to you with an otherworldly encounter, listen to them and really just have an open mind with it. And I would also say keep looking up. Don't look down, look up because there's stuff out there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always tell everybody the same thing. People are on their phones looking
Yeah,
down.
exactly.
Great
Exactly.
message. Great message. All right, I want to thank you, Eric, for joining me today and
Hey,
sharing your insight and your connection towards the arts as well as the universe and our deep connection to it. So thank you
you're
very much.
welcome. You're welcome, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we'll be in touch then.
All right, buddy. Sounds good. Bye-bye.